So find a comfortable position, relax. We'll meditate for about 20 minutes. Tuning into the body and how it feels in this moment. Maybe adjusting the posture a little here and there to really be able to relax and still stay alert. So it's helpful if the spine is straight, but not rigid. And you can tune into your breathing if that's comfortable. And see if you can invite that sense of relaxation and refreshment to spread throughout the whole body. You've probably noticed that trying to force the body or the mind to do things doesn't work very well. But that encouragement, giving the body and the mind the causes, the conditions for being at ease and relaxed and alert and present are really what's helpful. So today we're going to talk about death. And just notice what arises in the mind or maybe even in the body, just hearing that word. And we're going to particularly bring our attention today to experience of those we care for, those we love, those who we depend on, also being subject to death. Most of us, perhaps gathered here today, have experienced losing someone close to them. Even saying it that way is kind of a euphemism, but we know what it means. The people in our life die. In fact, that's inevitable for every one of us. We know this intellectually, but it's very difficult to take in as a reality, to know it deeply. The nature of the body, all beings who are born, is to die. It's just natural, inevitable. A lot of times we don't want to think about it. But at some point, and this is probably true for most of you since you've come to this program today, we recognize that being aware, really taking in the reality of death, is an important part of living a happy and secure life. It's an important aspect of being aware and accepting truth with that capital T, Dhamma, the way things actually are. And the reflecting on death is something, as you know, the Buddha encouraged on a regular basis. So regular that it could be with every breath or every mouthful of food when you eat. Most of us don't do it quite that often, probably. But over time, maybe the reality of death and the reality of how impermanent and changing everything is in this world is kind of there in the background or as a basis for the way that we move in through our life, move from, like the decisions we make, the recollections we bring up. Just take a few minutes to allow that to sink in and notice what that means in your experience. When we really face the reality that we'll all die, does it change the way you behave, the way you think, what you put your attention on, what you focus on, how you interact with people? Now, for each of us, it could be different, or at different times in our life, different moments. The reaction inside could be different. The effect of that reflection. Sometimes it might bring up fear or sadness. Sometimes it might bring up a sense of caring and softness and compassion. Sometimes it might evoke a sense of deep peace. Whatever it is, it's our awareness of what we're experiencing. And awareness is a word that's used in a kind of a special way in this tradition. It's mindfulness and it's also wisdom. Aware of what you're feeling right now, the thoughts in your mind right now. Seeing this experience through the lens of the Dhamma. And what does that mean? Breathing in and breathing out. present to the experience here and now. Accepting the way it is right now at this moment, both internally and externally. The whole collection of causes and conditions that culminate in this moment. Sensing the pervasiveness of change. Anicca. There is a still point, a steadiness that we can continually come back to. And what is that? We give it the name Dhamma, presence, awareness. Maybe you might think of it as chitta or consciousness. Mindfulness. Regardless of what label we use, there is this knowing, this place where we can take a stand that isn't changing and fluctuating and developing and increasing or decreasing, but it's just there. Whenever we turn our attention to it, it's there. In the witnessing position, the mindfulness, presence, awareness. Knowing how that feels, there are no words that really are sufficient here. The language comes from conventional reality and experience. But this is beyond that. So maybe your mind likes the phrase, it's like this. To leave it open to what we know directly ourselves, beyond words. To have those thoughts and feelings arise in thinking about death is like this. your experience and my experience may be different in this moment, or our experience in this moment might be different from what it was yesterday or sometime in the past, when maybe we were faced with the reality of someone close to us dying. And what was that like for you then? That's just a memory now. But our reflection can help us bring our thinking mind closer to seeing reality. Or maybe more accurately, open up to the aspect of mind that's deeper than our cognitive thinking process. Touching into that which does not change. When the Buddha said he realized that his body, his mind, were all subject to death, subject to changing. He said, why would I try to pursue and acquire other things that change, that are subject to death? Possessions, relationships. What he wanted to pursue, what he wanted to understand, is that which is beyond change, beyond death, the deathless. And that's what he did. And that's right here in the present moment. It's not somewhere else. It's not later. It's always. Seeing what we experience now in the present moment with wisdom. Now it is true, since we have this body and mind that change, that develop. That's the good news about change. We don't have to be stuck with our old habits and all our conditioning. When we cultivate virtue, cultivate the mind, we cultivate wisdom, sila, samadhi, and panya. Develop, practice mindfulness. That's the good news about change. So our ability, or our understanding, our acceptance, our knowing develops. So losing my father so suddenly when I was 40, it's a very different experience than losing my mother a few years ago. With so much more practice under my belt, so much more reflection, so much more preparation. And you have perhaps had similar kinds of experiences. That the practice matters. It helps us to develop, helps us to be ready, in a sense, prepared, makes the Dhamma more accessible, even though the Dhamma's there all the time for everyone. Our conditioning, our ways of thinking, our lack of understanding keep us from directly seeing it. And that's what changes with our own practice. That's what we're doing here together today. Reflecting on the things that really matter. That really lead to peace and the end of suffering. And they really give us a chance to be of greater support to each other. So with that, we'll let the meditation come to a natural close. Gradually come back. We'll take a look at the suttas for today. I'm going to share the screen about grandmother. I wonder how many of you have lost your grandmother. You want to raise your hand again? Now I've got the screen open. I can see, yeah, me too, both of them. Some of you may have been lucky enough to have more than two. Don't know. Some circumstances bring that kind of thing about. But in general, many of us will lose at some point our grandmothers. Sorry, I'm just adjusting my screen here for a second. It's not cooperating with me. So this is about the King Pasenadi, and it comes from the Sanyutta, the collection of suttas involving King Pasenadi that are in the Sanyutta Nikaya, the linked discourses. And this is Bhante Sujato's translation. At Savatthi, King Pasenadi of Kosala sat to one side, and the Buddha said to him, "So, great king, where are you coming from in the middle of the day?" And the king says, "Sir, my grandmother has passed away. She was old, elderly, and senior. She was advanced in years and had reached the final stage of her life. She was 120 years old." Not all versions of the sutta give that age. Some of them, it's 100 years old, but whatever, old. She had been around for a good long time. And he says, "I loved my grandmother. She was dear to me. If by giving away the elephant treasure I could get my grandmother back, I'd do it." So elephant treasure, this is a way of talking about the things that a great king has at his disposal. These various different kinds of treasure. If by giving away the horse treasure I could get my grandmother back, I'd do it. If by giving away a prized village, I could get my grandmother back, I'd do it. If by giving away the whole country, I could get my grandmother back, I'd do it. He'd give up the entire kingdom to have his grandmother back. When the Buddha says, great king, all sentient beings, so all living beings are liable to die. Death is their end. They're not exempt from death. Everything that comes to life must die. And the king says, see, I imagine a space here where this sinks in, you know, and the king says, it's incredible, it's amazing how well you said that, Lord Buddha. All sentient beings are liable to die. Death is their end. They're not exempt from death. That's so true, great king, says the Buddha. That's so true. All sentient beings are liable to die. Death is their end. They're not exempt from death, or we can't escape from death. It's like the vessels made by potters. The vessels, the bowls or the pots, whatever kind they are, whether they're baked or unbaked, all of them are going to break apart. Breaking is their end. They're not exempt from being broken. In the same way, all sentient beings die. Death is their end. They're not exempt from death. That is what the Buddha said. And then he added this verse, all beings will die, for life ends in death. They pass on according to their actions, their deeds, reaping the fruits of good and bad. It says those who do bad go to hell, and if you do good, you go to heaven. So I don't know how that strikes you. Some of us, our conditioning makes us cringe. But the idea being there are results from our actions. That's why you should do good, investing in the future life. Good deeds of sentient beings support them in the next world. So whether we have an understanding of multiple lifetimes or not, it's not the point. But this understanding that there are results of good and bad actions, it's still all part of samsara, conventional reality. And of course, we reflect frequently on what goes beyond conventional reality, where the results of good and bad actions cease. Because all actions from that point on, from the point on of realizing Nibbana, there's no attachment to action. Nothing's done out of greed, hatred, or delusion anymore. That's a different teaching, but important since it got brought up here in the sutta. So I think we can perceive here that King Pasenadi found some relief in the Buddha's pointing out the inevitability of death. I think this is something that is extremely helpful for any of us, whether it's disease or death, recognizing that it's not personal. It's not like people in our life die as a kind of loss directed at us, I might say. Remember one time there was a woman who had been coming to me for spiritual counseling for quite a long time. And there were a number of years intervening, and then she occasionally would talk with me, and she called to talk about how hard things have been. Her mother passed away. And she was listing a whole bunch of things that were going wrong. Car broke down on the freeway. I don't remember all the details, but a bunch of things. Sometimes this seems to happen, like something big happens in our life, like someone passing away. And it seems like that's exactly when the refrigerator packs up, or some other maybe normal life things, but they seem so huge. Or it just seems like kind of a confluence of things breaking apart. So she was going through this list of things that had happened. And then she said, and the worst thing that happened to me is that my mom died. Of course, the worst thing. And I think you have to be there in the moment and have the sense of the relationship when what I'm going to say is when I tell you what I said that's not the worst thing that happened. Because that is a completely natural thing to have happen. And we talked about how this isn't about what happened to her, in a sense. So, to really kind of take that in, I know sometimes when we're focused on something we feel is our misfortune, and we come to the point of, someone's just mentioning this morning, yeah, good idea. Someone was just mentioning this morning the shift from why me to why not me can be such a relief, because we do take it personally. It all of our conditioning is that I'm this body, I have these family members, I have these relationships, these are my possessions. All that conditioning causes a great deal of stress and suffering when things get lost, when people die. And this doesn't mean that when we recognize that this isn't personal, this is how it works, that we're not going to have grief, or that we're not going to feel the loss. The most recent talk of Ajahn Sumedho, he starts out by saying that his main upatak, his main supporter is Ajahn Asoko, which you may know. And then Ajahn Asoko's father recently passed away. And he actually asked Lumpur Sumedho to reflect on this in his talk. Because he says, he and his sisters, Ajahn Asoko and his sisters, all felt that it was a good thing that their father died. Because he was emaciated, he was at the end of life, he was suffering so much. There wasn't any chance of coming back, getting better, it was that time. And Ajahn Asoko asked, can you reflect on how you can know that it's a good thing that he died and still feel sad? Well, of course. I mean, many of us have had that kind of situation. You certainly don't wish for your loved one to continue living in the misery that's coming with the body kind of winding down to the end of its karma. There has to be that end. And the body, if we really reflect on this, I think we can see how the body does not belong to us. That's not who our mother is. That's not who Ajahn King Pasinity's grandmother was. That's not, she's not this 120-year-old body. And to realize that this body doesn't belong to us, neither do our feelings or the other khandhas. So Ajahn Sumedho, in his reflection, he brought up how the rational intellect recognizes that death is a good thing when we get to that point. But he says the intellect doesn't feel. And the feelings that arise, sadness, grief, and to recognize that this is natural, and we treat the experience of the intellect. I don't think he said it exactly this way, but my way of putting this together is we treat that experience of the intellect, seeing that it's a good thing that death comes. I've talked about this a little bit before when I was taking care of my mom and she was going through that phase. She hadn't eaten in a long time, weeks. She hadn't even taken in any water. She couldn't take in any water. She was basically in a kind of coma and taking any water in for much longer than I thought a body could last. And it was like I realized she and I were both waiting for the miracle of death. It's a miracle that consciousness can leave this body behind when the body's finished. And that was very much at a feeling level, an intuitive level. But emotionally, yeah, of course, the grief will come and go. Feelings of sadness, we're going to miss them. So I think that, the point of this sutta is the ability to see all of that, to hold all of that, to be present with and see with Dhamma, both the intellectual side and the feeling side. If we even want to call them sides, these different experiences involved. So before we go on to the next sutta, just want to know if there are any comments or questions. And I want to really encourage people who haven't spoken up in this group to feel free to raise your hand, and maybe the ones that are really good at coming forward to hold back a little bit today. Anybody have anything they want to share at this point? Okay, let's just then, of course, you can say anything later too about this part. I'm going to share the screen again, and this time we're going to talk about Cunda. Okay, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so I put this together in a Word file because I wanted to change a few things. I started with Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation. This is also from the Samyutta Nikaya. book 47, number 13, Cunda or with Cunda. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's monastery. Now, on that occasion, the Venerable Sariputta was dwelling among the Magadhans at Nakula, sick, afflicted, gravely ill, and the novice Cunda was his attendant. Then, because of his illness, the Venerable Sariputta died, attained final nibbana. Because he was an arahant, there was nothing left of that personality, Sariputta. And the footnotes say that Cunda, according to the commentary, Cunda was one of Venerable Sariputta's brothers. The story of Venerable Sariputta's death was that he went home to his mother's house, and that's where he passed away. And his brother, he had 3 brothers and 3 sisters, according to the commentaries, and they all became arahants. They were all bhikkhus and bhikkhunis. And the 3 sisters, there are passages from them in the Therigatha. And Cunda, it doesn't make much sense that he would still be a novice. They say that he became an arahant when he was a novice, shortly after his novice ordination. But I think, and the commentary, one of the commentaries suggests that he's still being called novice Cunda, because after all, Venerable Sariputta was pretty old when he died. His brother probably wasn't a young kid anymore. But the commentary says that maybe they always called him novice Cunda as a way to distinguish him from others. Bhikkhu Bodhi doesn't think that's very likely, but actually, if you've been raised in a culture where somebody might be kind of given a name and it just keeps carrying on through their whole life, you might like think, oh yeah, they might just still be calling him novice Cunda, even though he's an arahant, and he's young, probably the younger one in Sariputta's family, something like that maybe. In any case, Cunda's handling of this was a bit different. It has a striking distinction between Ananda's response to Venerable Sariputta's death, we might say. Although, who knows? The novice Cunda, taking Venerable Sariputta's bowl and robe, went to Savatthi, to Jeta's Grove, and to Pindika's monastery, and that was a bit of a trip. In the parallel sutta that we find in the book on mindfully facing disease and death, it says that he also brings Venerable Sariputta's remains or his relics from the cremation. Maybe that would be a common thing to do. Then he approached the Venerable Ananda and paid homage to him and sat down to one side. And he said, Venerable Sir, the Venerable Sariputta has attained final nibbana. This is his bowl and robe. And Ananda says, friend Cunda, we should see the Blessed One about this. Come, let us go to the Blessed One and report this matter to him. Venerable Cunda says, yes. And then Venerable Ananda and Novice Cunda approached the Blessed One and paid homage to him and sat down to one side. And the Venerable Ananda then says to the Blessed One, Novice Cunda says that Venerable Sariputta has attained final nibbana, and this is his bowl and robe. And Venerable Sir, since I heard that Venerable Sariputta has attained final nibbana, my body seems as if it's been drugged. I have become disoriented, and the teachings are no longer clear to me. And you might know that this also was Venerable Ananda's expression when the Buddha told him he was going to die. Or maybe it was when he was getting close to death. I can't remember exactly, but this idea that, man, this is just having a big effect on me, kind of, you know. And I think, I mean, I certainly know how that feels. And maybe you do too. And then the Buddha says to him, but why, Ananda? When Sariputta attained final nibbana, did he take away your entire spectrum of virtue? Now, that translation of entire spectrum is for Cunda. So the Buddha in the Pali talks about the virtue Cunda, so the heap. It's like we talk about the five khandas of, what we think of as a personal self. Each of these, the Sila Khanda, the Samadhi Khanda, the Panya Khanda, the Vimutti Khanda, the liberation, and the knowledge and vision of liberation, all as khandas. So what does that mean? It's like the whole collection, the whole spectrum, the whole heap, the whole pile of virtue. Did he take that with him when he died? Did he take the samadhi with him when he died, or the wisdom, or the liberation, or the knowledge and vision of liberation? And Ananda says, no, he didn't. So what the Buddha's pointing out is, well, this is what's really important. This is what really, these are the characteristics, the qualities that are really the value. When Ananda says, but for me, the Venerable Sariputta was an advisor and counselor, one who instructed, exhorted, inspired, and gladdened me. He never tired of teaching the Dhamma. He was helpful to his spiritual companions in the holy life. We recollect the nourishment of Dhamma, the wealth of Dhamma, the help of Dhamma given by the Venerable Sariputta. So here we really see the both the reality of death, the reality that, the Buddha said this when he died also. I'm not taking the Dhamma with me when I die. It's here for you. This is what you have to rely on, to learn from. And yet, of course, for those who weren't yet, you might say, completely independent in the Dhamma, it's a loss. And Venerable Cunda is not saying these things probably because he was already independent of his brother in the Dhamma. And then the Buddha says, but have I not already declared, Ananda, that we must be parted, separated, and severed from all who are dear and agreeable to us? How could it be possible that what is born, come to be, conditioned, and subject to disintegration, not disintegrate? That is impossible. So, this is a reflection that we do a lot in the monastery. All that is mine, beloved and pleasing, will become otherwise, will become separated from me. At first you can think, well, that's really sad. That's a downer. But it doesn't feel that way when we recognize, well, this is just true. This is just how it really is. And it's a relief to say that out loud, to recognize that that's how it is, and to come to terms with it. But in my experience, there's something else that comes in. There's this flood of wisdom and understanding that there is something, there is the Dhamma to rely on. And it's I don't know if you've experienced this, but I imagine you probably have, that in those situations where we are really directly touching truth. In my experience, when my grandmothers died, when my grandfathers died, when my uncle, who was very dear to me, died, when my father died, when my mother died, there's something very powerful in that touching death that is Dhamma. There's a spiritual fabric there, or It's hard to describe. That's uplifting and comforting. The Buddha doesn't actually say that, but he's talking about, but the Dhamma doesn't go away. And then he uses this simile. It's just as if the largest branch would break off a great tree, standing possessed of heartwood. So too, Ananda, in the great Sangha, capital S, enlightened Sangha, that stands possessed of heartwood. Sariputta has attained Phamanibbana. And how could it be possible that what is born come to be conditioned and subject to disintegration, not disintegrate? That is impossible. Therefore, Ananda, live as your own island, your own refuge, with no other refuge. Let the Dhamma be your island and your refuge, with no other refuge. So that experience or that feeling, realization, whatever we want to call it, where we are touched by that deeper truth. That's what we rely on. Or even that shift to be present with, that's what we rely on. Seeing and experiencing what's happening in the present moment for us, especially when we're touching death, that's what we rely on. That's going to be with us when we die. Our phone won't be with us. All the things we try to look up, no chance. Everyone in our life, they can't come with us when we go. But the Dhamma is there. Truth of the way things are immutable. So how does a mendicant do this? So when a mendicant meditates, observing an aspect of the body, keen, aware, mindful, rid of covetousness and displeasure for the world. So no more longing and displeasure for the world, for the conventional reality, turning away from that and observing the body. We're observing our feelings. Feeling and emotion, whatever heap you throw it into, this is what we're experiencing. We are turning towards what we experience with mindfulness and wisdom. Meditating, observing an aspect of mind, so those mental states, observing an aspect of Dhamma, really reflecting on truth. That's how you live as your own island, your own refuge, no other refuge. So this is something you can do. You don't have to wait for lightning to strike. This is something we can do. Whatever way we are with this being present and aware, seeing through that lens of Dhamma, this is what we can do in any moment. And the more we do that, the more prepared we are when things change in a way that really affects us. This is how the Dhamma is their island and their refuge with no other refuge. Those mendicants, Ananda, either now or after I've passed away, who dwell with themselves as their own island, with themselves as their own refuge, with no other refuge, who dwell with the island as their refuge, the Dhamma as their island, with the Dhamma as their refuge, with no other refuge. It's these mendicants who will be, for me, topmost of those keen on training. So we can see how the Buddha's teachings again and again come back to these basics. Mindfulness, presence, being aware, opening the heart to what's beyond, or I don't know how to say it, the thinking mind. Observing the thinking mind, just like we would observe anything else. If thoughts are arising, just observing, being present with that, but present from that place that's got a depth of wisdom. It's so simple. We need to revisit it over and over and over again. This reflection on death, reflection on how everything that is mine, beloved, and pleasing will become otherwise. Reflection on how, Ajahn Chah would hold up the glass and say, do you see the crack in it? I know there's a crack in this glass. I mean, there's nothing wrong with trying to take care of the glass so it doesn't break. Don't let it sit there right at the edge of the table, like waiting for someone to knock it over. Just try to keep, we try to keep things around longer, just out of, respect and care for the requisites or whatever good fortune we have, but to know that crack is there. It's okay. It's life, truth, reality. We will lose our parents, our grandparents, our parents. Now I'm at the stage where my generation is the one slowly coming to the end of the conveyor belt. It's an image I've used because there's no stopping it. Time, aging. So whenever it happens, at whatever age, under whatever circumstances, if we've prepared ourselves with these reflections, then we don't waste time thinking, why me? Why this? Why now? There's never a good time to lose someone you love. I mean, of course, it can be like Ajahn Sukha's father. Someone just contacted me. Father's dying. She's taking care of him, wanting advice. It's a good time to get advice. And, that's going to happen to most of us. Unless our karma is that we leave before everyone else, but it's not the odds, usually. If it is, we have another lifetime to experience this, I'm sure. So that's today's reflection. We're going to be talking about death for the next 6 weeks. And this is such an important part of the practice and development, and such an opportunity. And one of the phrases in the book that I really liked was where Ajahn or Bhikkhu Anālayo said, you can take this opportunity, this experience of grief, and turn it into an opportunity for awakening. And that is correct. That is true no matter what our experience is. Whether we're gaining or losing, regardless, we can turn it into an opportunity for awakening. And that's what real practitioners, that's what it really means to practice. when the Buddha said those practitioners are the ones that are at the topmost. Yeah, being mindful and present when things go the way we want them to go, being mindful and present with awareness, with wisdom when things go the way we don't want them to go, regardless of whatever feelings are arising. And there are some pitfalls, you might say. Sometimes we can hear teachings that make us think, well, I shouldn't feel grief. I shouldn't feel this way or that way. I shouldn't be attached. I shouldn't, shouldn't. Observe all of that as part of the conditioning. Don't feel bad about anything you feel. Yeah, this is second arrow stuff, but regardless of how we characterize it, just know that it's all from past conditioning. The thoughts that arise in our mind, the feelings that we have, we don't own any of it. We don't own any of it. We don't control what comes into our mind. We don't control what feelings arise in us. It comes from something else, causes and conditions, not just one thing either. It's not just the way my mother was and what happened to me when I was a certain age or whatever. It's multiple things coming together that cause us to feel the way we feel, experience, trauma reactions or whatever. Just not being concerned about, not identifying with any of it, and just taking care of it, addressing it, being present with it. This is what we have the opportunity to do. This is what is going to help us awaken. So I really want to encourage you. Years ago when I was visiting Wapananacha, they had t-shirts apparently made that on the back it said no owner. I did not understand what they were talking about. What does it mean? Now I get it. We don't own any of this. We don't own the body. We don't own our feelings, our thoughts. We don't own the Dhamma either. This idea of me and mine, this is just a illusion. When we really understand that, we save a lot of time and energy. We don't have to blame ourselves, blame someone else. Whose fault is it? It's just the way it is. So I know we have one hand up. Elizabeth gets to talk a lot. I'm going to hold off for just a second, Elizabeth. I know you'll understand, but we'll get to you. Would anybody who's not so likely to say stuff want to say something? Kimberly?
Thank you. That was I really enjoyed both of those suttas. My question is not so much about my experience with death, but my reaction to other people's experiences of death. I'm a death doula by trade as well. And I feel like I just handle death really well. Of course, losing loved ones can be sad and I grieve, but generally I don't have big shows of emotion when it comes to death. And I feel like people perceive me as being quite cold and unfeeling about it. And it's not true. I just really I come to acceptance about things quite quickly. And so in terms of like supporting people. I don't expect you to have any answer. I think it's just maybe I'm not alone in that experience, and our society isn't conditioned to accept death like we're learning together.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to share that. I just wanted to share that sometimes we stand out when we come into acceptance of things so quickly. And and that person's reaction is their business, of course. But my whole thing is to do no harm. I don't want to harm people. So sometimes I kind of fake it too, you know? Like fake grief almost. Just so I can be on their wavelength. Anyway, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Kimberly. I also got a message from someone that they wanted me to talk a little bit about how do we support people, and their expression was similar in a way. They feel that as they're practicing more, developing over the years, they're much calmer and more accepting of death, and they're able to help others much more than they could in the past because of that. So you're probably a very stabilizing presence for people, I would imagine. And and it's true that in our culture, we are not encouraged to face death or to accept it easily. And over the many years have been, visiting Thailand and listening to the Ajahns trained in Thailand, they talk about how in Thai culture it's so very different because acceptance of death is quite pervasive. And, like people coming, according to, I remember Ajahn Brahm talking about this a lot, people coming to the cremation and not crying, like, and I witnessed a little bit of family when I was at Aloka Vihara, and after I left, hearing from the Aloka Vihara nuns, the family who, was a mother and a father and some young girls, daughters, and the father had cancer, and it was over a few years completely going, towards his passing away, and that there wasn't this strong reaction of I don't want to say grief, but there wasn't this strong reaction against it. It was kind of like there was a lot of the conditioning is to give dana and to be accepting of it. So a lot of this is cultural conditioning. And I'm glad that you're aware if you're trying to kind of like fake it to be on their wavelength, but I would encourage you to like let go of the feeling, if that makes sense, of wanting to kind of like meet them in that way at their level. Meet them from the place of, yeah, this hurts. Maybe expressing more the mindfulness, um the the this, like, it's okay to feel what we feel. We can accept there. That's a place to start with acceptance. Accept how I feel right now about this. And it changes.
This is how it is. Mm-hmm.
This is, and the way it is, it's not, like to not be like, oh, this is the way it is, that can also be spiritual bypassing, which I'm not saying it is at all in your case, but it's like to be aware of when are we just kind of trying to push it away or turn away or cover it up, and to just peel those layers back and be with what's actually there. And even we may even when we identify, again, I'm not talking about you personally, but what can happen is we may identify as someone who just loses it and can't like deal. We may identify as someone who's got it all under control, and all of those labels can be a way of bypassing what's really going on. So if you think, well, this is how I am, don't be surprised if suddenly that's not what's happening inside, that suddenly there's some, grief explosion. That's okay. It's just conditioning. It's all just conditioning. And that's not to minimize it. It's real feeling. It's feeling to be present with. It's that opportunity for awakening right there to really be willing to be with what is happening in the moment. And the more that we practice that in ourselves, the more we can be there to, like be doing that with other people, be encouraging them to be with what is happening now and is okay, and to hold them in that space. But just be loving, accepting, and remembering the natural unfolding of this process. Yeah, thank you, Kimberly. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Ayya.
Sarah?
Hi. I mainly wanted to speak up because I'm going to be going through the next couple of weeks. I may not be able to be around, and so my life. We're about to move to Oregon, so we're about to move out of state from our house of 35 years. My husband has dementia, and so I've been doing it all by myself. And there's and that image that you gave me of everything sliding down the hill into oblivion has been so comforting. Just like because he's struggling so much more because of all the chaos, and it feels like everything's falling apart, and it is falling apart.
Yeah.
And it's it's just been extraordinarily helpful to be part of this sangha. Thank you so much for your teachings. It's been such a support.
Yeah, you're welcome. Where are you going in Oregon?
To Eugene.
Okay. Okay, I hope that you can find some spiritual friends there.
Well, I plan to be here every Saturday still.
That's great.
Thank you.
Don't you love that? One of the beauties of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, I wish you well in that shift, and I can appreciate how disorienting it must be for your husband. And hopefully the new environment will be easy for him to navigate and understand. And I also can appreciate that you're having to just shoulder it all. And I hope that all goes well.
Yeah, it's been challenging because there's a lot of striving, but I feel like I kind of have to, or it won't get. Yeah. So.
Yeah, when we have a lot of kind of things we have to do in physical reality, I don't see it as striving. Really, it's not the same kind of like I got to get something out of my practice, or I got to get something. It's really just the right now. These are the causes, these are the conditions, this is what has to be done. And we're not lazy. We're going to do it responsible, do it, get it done. I mean, sometimes I think about the way Ajahn Chah taught the monks, like they're building this road, they work until complete exhaustion. He's always like working way harder than everybody. And, this is something that in the Thai forest tradition, at least, is often really used as an opportunity to push ourselves, and it's okay. So don't feel bad about having to take care of it and doing it in a responsible way and making sure it all It all works out as best it can. It's all good. I hope you have all the support you need. Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Okay, Elizabeth, you still got something to say? You're next. It's your turn now.
Yes, I just wanted to a question. So purifying the mind, the chitta, is not about that there's thoughts of defilements in there. It's about the reactions. It's about how you hold it. Like the thoughts
It's about
come.
whatever. It's about whatever is coming up. I mean,
No, I'm asking, let me see if I can make it clear. The thoughts we have no control over the thoughts that come up.
that's right.
Okay. So
Ah,
there's,
I think I understand.
okay. Would you respond, please?
Yeah, so there's a difference between what arises in the mind spontaneously, you might say, but it's just, past conditioning, and what we actually put energy into thinking. So this is a very important distinction, because we can put energy into thinking about stuff that really drags us down, gets us all wrapped up in the world, gets us all wrapped up in unwholesome things. Or we can put our attention on Dhamma, or on seeing the true nature of things. And how do we tell? It's based on how peaceful we are. Now, my experience is that when I think about death, when I think about the inevitability of death, when I reflect on the experiences I've had with my loved ones passing away, I feel a lot of peace, generally. If my thoughts are about feeling like I made mistakes and I wish I had done things differently, that is not peaceful. And it's very much from the sense of self. But if our reflections are not coming from the sense of self, if it's taking a stand in Dhamma, we'll feel the peacefulness of it. And so this is another way of saying the same thing the Buddha said about the First Noble Truth, recognizing when there's suffering present and when there isn't. And the Buddha talked like this too. When Mahapajapati came to him and asked for a teaching in brief, he said, you know what's peaceful and you know what's not. What leads to peace and what leads to agitation, to stress, to dukkha. And the way of the Dhamma, the way to practice, the way to direct the mind is towards what's peaceful. And when we're trying to cover things up with the spiritual bypassing, it's not peaceful. There's an underlying anxiety to it because we know we're not really being real. And if we pay attention to that, then we know, hey, it's time to be real, to let go of our preconceptions, our views, our opinions, our standpoints. Back to that quote we had last week, this is peaceful, this is sublime. The stilling of all conditions, the letting go of all attachments, the ending of craving, fading away, cessation, nirvana. That's when we're being real. And we can feel the difference. It's peaceful.
But the first, okay, so I can recognize that there's something unwholesome coming up, and so I recognize it, but I don't. I can also step back, hold it in awareness and just watch it.
And then immediately it's peaceful.
Yes, well,
So
yes.
like if you step back, if you take that witness position, seeing with wisdom, then you feel the peacefulness. That is no longer in the unwholesome. It's no longer, it's seeing it, It's observing it. It's knowing.
But I guess I'm saying I can't, it's more of a process. It's like seeing it, I'm seeing it, the mind is seeing it, but there's still the disturbance. It takes a little, I have to travel a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. And over time, that distance becomes shorter.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's knowing that difference. That's what's important. We're seeing it with wisdom. You're really seeing. Yeah.
Yes, and just not feeling terrible that the defilements arise in the first place. I mean, that's the
Exactly,
process.
because
Yeah.
it's just another layer of selfing.
Yeah, that's the process of the purification. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. You're welcome. Yes, Olive.
Thank you, Ayya. Um, I have an understanding of the Dharma and the not me, and yet, let's say, for example, I lie, is and am uncomfortable with that. Is that past conditioning?
To
And
lie or to feel uncomfortable with it. I mean,
both.
actually, I would really pay attention to the movement to lie, the intention. There is conditioning there, of course. We're running on conditioning all the time,
Yeah,
but I would really pay attention to that. Really try to reaffirm your precepts and keep them, and understand when you don't want to keep them and what's going on there. Really investigate that, because it's about the sense of self, and it has a karmic result. So you're going to have conditions in the future that are, like perpetuating the same kind of thing. And also, when we lie, there are other kinds of repercussions. People don't trust us. We don't feel good about it, like you said. It's when the Buddha, or someone said to me once, they really like that there's no hell in Buddhism. And I said, well, actually, if you read the suttas, they're still talking about it in there. But like what's really the hell? It's the hell we bring on ourselves.
yeah,
We
yeah,
bring heaven on ourselves too. So like, what are you going to choose? And
yeah. When I do a certain investigation, identification comes up, and then the phrase "an opportunity for awakening." I mean, can I go there?
yeah, but not as a personal thing. It's not the personality that wakes up. And it's like really sorting out what's the sense of self involved in all this, and can I let it go? Because it's if we go to I'm so awake that we're not awake. This is why anybody who's saying I'm an arahant, like forget it, they're not even close. Like it's the sense of self that wants to lie. It's a
Yeah,
sense of self that's trying to be preserved. It's the sense of self. If we want to do something good, and we want people to know we're doing something good, and we want, to be seen a certain way, even if we want to think of ourselves in a certain way, it's still self. So trying to recognize that that's really an illusion. It's
yeah,
delusion.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. Anyone else? Yes, Regina.
My question is, when I do a death contemplation, like for example, Analayo's recorded death contemplation, I have pretty much no trouble, and it's really peaceful, and I look forward to it, deep peace, and it's kind of nice.
Mhm.
And the 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 meditation, it's not a recorded meditation, but for example, when I imagine I would make for myself a meditation of impressions leading up to my death. And of course, that would all be very hypothetical, right? It's sort of based on situations that I have seen with friends of mine dying. Like, for example, the legs swelling up so much because the circulation doesn't work very well anymore, or serious painful constipation, or not being able to go to the bathroom myself, and maybe revolting body smells, this kind of suttas.
Yeah, the Stuba reflections.
A lot of revulsion, and maybe not just for me, but also for my caretakers,
Sure.
and that's like, I don't even know whether that should be a meditation or whether that's me building up a little horror show for myself. It's certainly not peaceful what you just explained, right? This is not peaceful. But I do have this question whether it would be a worthwhile training to occasionally consider these kind of things, or whether this is a waste of time, because who knows how I'm going to die, and why should I make up scenarios? Thank you. That's my question.
Well, first of all, if we look at the sutta we looked at last time, and we see the 10 perceptions there that the Buddha was encouraging, you'll see the asubha practice in there. You'll see the practice on danger, which is the things you're talking about. These things can happen to us. The human body breaks down in these certain ways. So I do think it can be valuable to reflect on this, but to recognize that we're reflecting, that we are just using our imagination. It's just that we're creating this, and to know that, to understand it. But why? We create it so that we can practice accepting what could happen. Yes, you're aware that it could take any form. It might not happen like this at all, but that you're using it, know that you're using it as a way to develop this perception, the perception of danger, the perception of the unattractive. When do we want to use those perceptions, that practice? It's when we are not being real. We're somehow thinking we're going to go on like this for a long, long time. I don't have to think about, what could happen. I think that if you're using, excuse me, or maybe the classic purpose of reflecting on the unattractive, if we have lust for someone, if we have, those kinds of things. So if when we're practicing in this way, it just brings the mind down, or there is some negativity, there's a maybe a feeling of hopelessness, or like there's some kind of negative mental state that's being cultivated by this, then we want to notice that and pull back, because there's a sense of self going on in that too. So I think we want to really just, you can use these perceptions, but know that, observing, how it's affecting the mind. And it's not like we turn away from it just because there's this negative impact, but then we have to work with that. Like if my mental state becomes negative, that's also from thinking. And then we can use mindfulness of the mind, mindfulness of, our thought processes, and work with that. And we want to always be, if we're really doing this from a place of Dhamma, seeing it with wisdom, there will be a peacefulness to it. So when we're identifying with it, that's when, I mean, there's a kind of disgust. I think disgust sometimes is too strong a word, but there's a fading away, because that same word, viraga, gets translated as disgust, or it can get translated as fading away. There's a fading away of our attachment to the body, our attachment to being in control. So a lot of what you're talking about is being in control, being able to keep it pleasant. You know, like if we're taking care of someone who's dying, it's not always pleasant. That's just the truth. The stuff that comes out of the body is very unpleasant. It's quite foul. Can be. So the Buddha pointed this out. He pointed it out so we could face reality and let go of identification. So just as you practice, work with what the results are, work with the mind, let go of identification, let go, use those other perceptions in that list to keep things in balance. So when in the story of in the Vinaya of the monks that killed themselves or had someone, a pretty deranged monk, kill them because they were overwhelmed by this unattractiveness of the body practice, then the Buddha taught them mindfulness of in and out breathing. So balance your practice and be aware of the effects of your practice on your mind, and practice mindfulness and clear comprehension with that as well. Every layer.
Thank you. That was very helpful.
You're welcome. Yes, Serena. This will be the last one. I will let you go. I won't keep you so long after class. Maybe. You're muted, my dear. You're still muted. Serena, you're muted.
Oh, good morning. Sorry.
Good morning. That's okay.
I'm deep in grieving and I forget things, like I forgot what day it is today, so I came in late. And I can tell that what you're talking about is exactly what I need to be hearing right now. So I will go back when the recording's posted and listen. Because what you're saying is right on for me. I'm aware that there is a self that is clinging to my loss of my husband. And this doesn't help. I mean, how long over the years that I've practiced have I thought about during the 25 years of our marriage that one of us is going to be left behind?
Right.
And most likely it would be me, because he was 7 years older and male, and he got cancer, and that's what happened. So here I am. And yeah, I need to listen to this because I need to meditate more on this part that is clinging and doesn't seem to totally, I mean, it's the emotions. So I can't just totally say, be gone. They're going to be here for who knows how long, but I have to learn how to manage them.
Well, it's really a valuable reflection that you can't control those emotions, that they don't, you just can't say, I don't want to feel like this and have that work. That just isn't how it works. They are not you. They are conditioned. And, the responsibility we have, as we've been talking about, is what we do with them when they arise. And, stepping back as much as possible to see that, this is normal, natural. It's not something to despise. Trying to get rid of it or clinging to it's the same thing. So just really allowing yourself to be with what arises, and at the same time be practicing developing the life you have now. Like, what do you want in your life? How do you bring it in? Like there's an important step in this big transition when someone we're living with passes away. Or, like the situation we talked about a few minutes ago, where the partner you have is changed so much you can't recognize them as the same person hardly, like this is also possible. So we deal with change as much as we can with mindfulness and clear comprehension. And to recognize that you have options. If it seems like there's not any options, look harder, because there are options. And what do you want in your life? Because your life has to be different now. It's like this change has occurred. To continue to reflect on how I wish it was the way it was before. I wish he didn't have a sickness. I wish he didn't die. This is no help. And so, like, even though there's nothing wrong with having the emotions arise, dwelling on those kinds of thoughts, again, that distinction between the thoughts that just pop into the mind and the thoughts that we are giving energy to. The longer we dwell on me and mine, the more suffering we're going to have. And if we start to think, well, what can I bring into my life? What do I want? What is my life now? I remembered the kind of shift with my mother as I started talking with her about her future and how she wanted her life to be. It took a total turn. Like, yes, she thought about my dad every day for probably how many decades did she live after he passed away? She probably thought about him every day. But it didn't have to be in that down-pulling way, in that how awful it is that I'm without him. So she decided to move. She had options. Everybody has different options. And just reflect on what you want in your life and how to bring it in. What kind of service you can give to others. What kind of relationships you want to cultivate. What kind of activities you want to do with your time. It can be, I would recommend listening to Grace's talk from last week. I know it's up online already. She talked a little bit about making friends. Just try some new things and see what that does, what you want in your life, and be aware of the self-identification, this me and mine. It's such an illusion. It's so much delusion. It's such a bringer of suffering.
Thank you, Ayya. That's right on and exactly what I need to hear. And so very helpful. It's where my meditation needs to focus right now. What is there for me now? What is my life now? And I have been thinking about that, and I come up with a big I don't know. So I probably need a little help with getting started with that. And
you've made some efforts. You have neighbors. You have a senior center nearby. They have activities. Try them out. Try things that you never tried before if you're up for it. And gradually the energy is going to come back, and you're going to find some people to connect with and things to do with your life. And most of all, for all of us who practice, what's really under it all is the Dhamma, that connecting to what doesn't change.
That's important, connecting to what doesn't change. I haven't really thought about that. The Dhamma doesn't really change.
That's right. And awareness doesn't change. The way we're being aware can change, but if we drop back to that position of witnessing and that direct connection with truth, with the way things are, this is Dhamma. This doesn't change. What doesn't change? Really reflect on this. What is it that brings peace? That acceptance, that letting go. When there's peace, that's a really good indication of this is what doesn't change.
I seem to have a lot of fear, and that's the biggest challenge. My life has always been fear-filled, and of course, when I found Dhamma, it's helped a lot. But there's still a lot of, especially now in this huge transition, there's fear.
Yeah, and you have to treat the fear the way you treat everything else, with mindfulness and clear comprehension, with awareness. So being present with the fear and noticing the part that's not afraid.
Okay.
Because there's nothing really to fear.
Exactly. I see that. And yet there's this pervasive, I don't know what the word is when it's just sort of,
Yeah. It's just conditioned.
Yeah.
It arises from the past. It's old.
Exactly. And knowing that is helpful, but they're still dealing with the emotion of it and the letting go, seeing the emotion for what it is.
Yep.
But it's still there.
And the only way to do it is that step back.
Okay.
Like click back and click up. You're clicking back, you're stepping back, you're seeing it. It doesn't fill the whole screen. If you stay so directly with it, it's right here in your face. You step back, you see the space around it. You experience and click up. You're seeing it with wisdom. You're seeing it with the Dhamma from that more of a bird's eye view, from more of a taking in the entire context.
Okay.
And
That's
then
really
when you do that, then the fear isn't so palpable. It's like, yes, it's there. So what?
That's good. That's helpful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ayya. And I'll ask you and the group for metta, please. Thank you.
Yeah. We're sending it.